We are looking at the gospel according to Matthew, the first of four gospels in the New Testament. The four gospels give us a account of Jesus that centers not on the life of Jesus per se, but on the ministry of Jesus. Traditionally, the ministry of Jesus is 3 years. The Gospels largely are quiet about what has happened in Jesus' life prior to his start in ministry. Matthew chapter 10, and we are looking at verses 32 and 33. Everyone, therefore, who acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever denies me before others, I will deny before my Father in heaven. And that's reading from the New Revised Standard. When it comes to Scripture, there are two broad approaches we can take. Now, I'm not making a definitive, categorical, etched in concrete sort of statement, but two broad approaches to Scripture. If you try to take what I say and make it categorical, it will not work. We can take the Scripture first off in terms of words, which we must heed and observe. This, taken to its logical conclusion, was the approach that Jesus confronted consistently when he dealt with the Pharisees. In this approach, we reduce the Scripture to a series of rules. We memorize the rules and we are good to go. The other approach is to see that the Scripture is about a series of great principles to organize and order your life by. Now, you cannot fully squeeze the whole of Scripture into this approach, for the commandments, such as you shall not murder, are pretty black and white. But on balance, we need to see the Scripture more as a book with a series of great principles. Look at these two verses in Matthew chapter 10. Now, you can read these verses and understand what Jesus is saying. The meaning is simple and plain, but these verses point to a principle. The principle is there's no such thing as a quiet Christian. A person who is a believer in Jesus Christ can only be one as he or she publicly declares one's faith. You see, there is no room for the idea that I can affirm Christ as Lord and keep that to myself. One of the basic principles of what it means to be a Christian is that we are to be a witness. The idea of witness or witnessing is foundational to the Christian faith. Now, as an aside, remember our English word martyr? We take that as meaning somebody who dies for that which they believe in. Well, that original word in Greek simply meant a witness. The connection was in the early church is that the witnessing got linked with being murdered for your faith, i.e., a martyr as we understand it today. You may still doubt it, so let me buttress my argument with scriptural support. Where did Jesus rise from the dead? Could not Jesus have risen from somewhere else? The point is that Jesus' resurrection was in an area where only a few people interacted with it. There were the guards who were there to ensure that nothing happened. Then there were some women who showed up to prepare Jesus' body for a formal burial. Then, after the women reported that something had happened at the tomb, a couple of apostles checked things out. You see, very few people were at that tomb that day. In order for that event to be known, what had to happen? You had to have witnesses attest to what had happened at the tomb. The reality of the resurrection must have witnesses in every generation to its reality and its power. One little tweak on what we are saying here. I do not think that what we see in this passage is a justification to always talk to people of Jesus, even when they are trying to shut us up. We all understand that there are people who, in their attempt to share the faith, probably do more harm than good. What we are saying is that through word and deed, we always speak to the reality of Jesus Christ as Lord. In our walk and in our talk, there is no embarrassment or shame in our faith commitment. We understand that people may not want to acknowledge what they see in us, but that does not matter. We will not cut back on living for Jesus. Understand, yes, we may speak words of Jesus when appropriate, but it is the life and lifestyle and the commitment to it and the living out of that faith that speaks to people. In that sense, by how we live, are we a quiet Christian or one whom nobody can deny Jesus is Lord in our lives? But through word and deed, we are called to present a credible witness to the resurrection power of Jesus of Nazareth.